Hi, this is Jackie Schollerman with Schollerman Group of Coldbanker Global Luxury, your Silicon Valley connections. Here today, I'm with Tim Watson. He is one of the prominent estate planning attorneys in the Menlo Park, California, middle of Silicon Valley. So at what point do you recommend for people start considering having estate planning done?
It's a great question. I get that question a lot.
Right.
A lot of our clients are young couples, young families, and that tends to be when people start thinking about estate planning, when they buy their first house or when they have a child.
Right.
Right? And
Yeah.
those are the two things that we find almost universally is when people start thinking about this. We have lots of clients that come in and they've had a house or kids for a long time. Maybe their kids are even grown and they do their first estate plan. But I think the ideal time is when you're young and you're getting started in life, or if you've moved to California from another state. I think that's the other time. California is has very state-specific laws and rules that might not be applicable elsewhere. And so if somebody's moving to California, this is a good time to either do an estate plan or have yours looked at and revised.
Can you sort of walk us through the process? Let's say I come to you today. What kind of advice do you give, and when do you start? How do you start? What is the timeline? What's involved?
Yeah. So usually the way we operate is we'll have an initial meeting or an initial phone call with our clients. We explain about the firm. We describe the process that I'm about to describe to you. We give them a chance to ask questions, and then we have sort of a time where we can ask them questions and try to get our heads around what they're trying to do. From that point forward, what we try to do is set up a meeting, and we give prospective clients a questionnaire to fill out. It's about an 8-page document that gets into a lot of details about their, personal finances, about their biographical data, and then about who their families are. It asks a lot of open-ended questions. The idea with that is we want them to start thinking about estate planning before they come in to see us.
Right. Yeah.
Then we set up a meeting, have them come in, and they bring that questionnaire, and we meet with them. Usually that initial meeting is about an hour, maybe 2 hours. We go through, we call it Estate Planning 101.
Okay.
We like our clients to make informed decisions about their plans, and so we like them to be educated, and we give them an opportunity to ask questions. It's very dynamic. We were talking about the whiteboard here.
Yeah.
We use the whiteboard a lot, and we get clients. Sometimes clients will jump up in the meeting, and they'll start drawing on the whiteboard.
Right.
So we like that about those initial meetings, really try to get to know the client. From that point, usually we can start drafting the plan documents, and the documents generally are a trust, a living trust, a will for each of the, if it's a couple, each of the partners or couple, a power of attorney, a healthcare directive, we do a HIPAA release, and then we have a series of other documents that are situation dependent. But we will start drafting the documents. That process sometimes can be done in a week or two. More often it takes about a month to 2 months to get those documents drafted and out to clients. Then it's in their court. Sometimes people get back to us very quickly.
Right.
We revise the documents and sign. Other times it takes 6 months, a year before they get their documents
that
done.
long.
Yeah, it just depends. People are busy, and this
Right.
is one of those things that tends to drop to the bottom of the list.
Right.
What we've developed a system where we will, once we've sent the documents to a client, we'll start reaching out once a month if we haven't heard from them, and just ping them. We understand that people are busy, and this isn't something that they want to be
Right.
thinking about.
So, what are some of the challenges you have when you're meeting with clients? Let's say it's a blended family or situations like that. What are the challenges, and how do you handle the situations? How do you resolve the challenges that you may encounter?
Right. It's tricky. I think that there's a big challenge with blended families. Right before you all came in here today, I was talking with a woman who's getting married for the second time. She and her future husband both have kids from prior relationships, and there's a lot of issues to discuss. There's a lot of talk about, should she and her family move into his house, or should they move into her house, and
Right.
how does that all work? And if one of them were to become incapacitated or to die, how do you fairly treat both sides of the family? It's difficult. Sometimes there's no good answers. I think the way we approach these kinds of issues is that we like to meet with both sides or both parts of the family. It's hard sometimes to aggressively represent one interest when you're doing estate planning. And so being upfront about when there are potential conflicts or when there are issues that need to be decided, and sometimes we have to back off and have them go to separate parties or separate attorneys.
I see. Okay.
But I think the most difficult thing, in doing this kind of work is that a lot of people have, you're talking about death and money, right? So
yeah.
death, money, and taxes,
Yeah.
right? And so people have very strong feelings about those things, and a lot of times don't want to talk. These are taboo things. These are things that people don't want to talk about. And so getting over that hump can be difficult for a lot of clients, and for us, frankly. I mean, we all come to it with our own preconceived ideas.
Right. How frequently do you recommend, once they have already done the estate planning, how frequently do you recommend for us to update it and keeping you in the loop?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We get that all the time. We tell people 5 years, that this is your 5-year plan. One of the things that we found people, some people that come to see us but don't go forward with doing a plan, it's because they can't get their head around, especially if they're a younger person, this has to last me my whole lifetime.
Right.
And so we try to get people, no, focus on the next 5 years.
Right.
And let's get this plan in place and think, in 5 years we'll check in and see if there's any changes. The vast majority of the time there won't be any changes. So we'll just keep the plan in place and check in another 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then we tell people there's certain life events that happen where you should be reaching out to us and let us know.
Right.
The death of a parent or a relative where you're going to inherit money, that's a big one. We want to know about that. We want to update your plan to address that. Births of children, a big one, right? We want to make sure all the kids are mentioned in the will and in the trust. Deaths of people. Obviously, sometimes people want to change guardians or change trustees, and so those are things that, obviously we need to change the documents. A lot of times we'll get calls from people, in the real estate context, where they're selling at one house and buying another, or they're refinancing their mortgage. And we're happy to take those calls because a lot of times our interest is making sure that their living trust is correctly listed on title to the house.
Right.
And traditionally banks had a tough time making loans to houses that were in trusts. And recently it's not been as big of an issue, but so people would take their houses out of trust in order to do a financing, and then it would never get put back in. And so a lot of times we were following up with clients to make sure that they put their house back in
That's
the
a
trust.
good point. I didn't even think about that part. What about, how do you stay in touch with all the laws and regulations that are changing, and are there any recent laws pertaining to estate planning attorney that we should be aware of? I know sometimes those exemptions keep going higher and higher, and are there anything else that you would like to share?
Well, the big one coming down for us that everybody's looking at is there's this tax reform that might or might not be passed, right? And we think that if it is passed and there's part of the estate tax, there's a chance that there's no estate tax for a period of time. And so we keep in touch we have daily newsletters that we get, we have monthly letters that we get. All of us here regularly go to continuing education to keep abreast of the newest laws. The County Bar Association here in San Mateo and Santa Clara County do a great job of keeping the lawyers informed of new developments. And I personally am what's called a certified specialist in estate planning, probate, and trust law. And so what comes along with that is this obligation of extra continuing education.
Right.
So I feel like we do a pretty good job of keeping up. But yeah, the one that we're keeping an eye on right now in particular is Washington, D.C. and what's going to happen with the tax code.
Right.
Even if it doesn't touch the estate tax,
right.
The changes in the tax code always have a rippling effect for our clients, and we like to be up to speed on how to advise them about that.
Right, exactly. I know there are several other estate planning attorneys in the area and in town, and we both belong to Rotary, and at least there's one other one.
Yeah.
What do you do differently to set yourself apart from the competition?
Yeah, the competition. Here's how I answer that question. First of all, I think there's great estate planning attorneys in this area. We're lucky that this is an area that attracts a lot of very
right.
interesting and smart people. And so there's a lot of people in the area in particular that have really good expertise. I think when people are looking for a lawyer, and estate planning lawyer in particular, the fit, the personal fit is very, very important. And so finding somebody that you get along with well, that you feel like you can talk to, that you feel is listening to you. I think as lawyers we have a tendency, because we've seen so many situations so many times, a tendency to sort of come in with I know the answer to that question before you even really listen to what the question is or where the client is at. I think our firm is fairly uniquely positioned in the sense that we're not sole practitioners, so anytime a new client comes in, if I'm not available, there's other people here that they can talk to that have answers to their questions. They can usually get somebody to respond within a day, sometimes within the same day, within hours. And so that's one of our goals as a small firm, is to make sure that there's a team of people in place for every client, that everyone knows their situation and can answer questions. We're not a big firm, and so we don't have big firm prices.
Right.
So I think our expertise and our advantage is that we can charge small firm prices, but because of our combined experience, and all of us have experience either in big firms or, like in my dad's case, as a CPA, and 40 years of experience, where I feel like the value that you get for the services we're providing and the advice we're providing is the best. I don't know that there's anybody there might be a few firms around that can do that, but the sophistication that we can do, the overall planning and administration, I think is pretty unique. Maybe not unique to firms, but I think that we're among the best at doing it. So.
If you have to pinpoint one segment of your job that you absolutely love, what is it?
Problem solving.
Okay.
Problem solving. I feel like where we excel and what I love to do is to get all of the inputs and hear the client and listen to what they're talking about, what their needs are, and then apply the skills that I have in tax law, in probate and estate law, and come up with a solution to that problem, or multiple solutions so that the client can pick from. And I feel like that's, again, another place where we really excel, is that we're looking for solutions to the client's problems. And I think clients really respond to that. We're not gonna, we're not gonna just say, no, you can't do that. We're gonna say, well, here's why you can't do it the way you want to do it, but let's talk about what is possible. Yeah, I think the experience that we have really makes us good at that. So.